Alright guys, so in this video we're going to talk about nav bars. We're going to create a couple different types of navigation bars and also just regular navigation without the bar. And before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about containers because we haven't really touched on that. Now, a container will basically move everything into the middle. You see how up here in the header we have the spacing on the sides. You know, if we make this bigger, we have the spacing on the side. Same down here. This nav bar is not inside of a container. Okay, so a container adds basically margin auto, and it gives it a max width. By default is going to be, I think, 1140 or something like that. So if we look at our Chrome tools here, let's just find a container. Let's see right here, div class container. We'll look over here, and for the media query where it's a min width of 1200, which is a large screen, the max width is 1140, and it changes depending on the screen size for the max width. And you can see it just adds margin auto, which pushes it into the middle, has a little bit of padding with 100%. Okay, and this nav bar here is not within a container. So if we go down here, you can see right here, it's not within a container, so it's right up against the edge. If I were to wrap this and use multiple containers usually for different sections, because you might want, for instance, a background image to span the whole thing, but the content inside you want to wrap in a container. If I go ahead and do that, now you can see it has that spacing and it's pushed into the middle. All right, but I'm going to get rid of that. We don't want to. We're going to use a container in this nav bar, but not there. All right, so I just wanted to mention that real quick because that's something that I haven't really explained yet. All right, so let's create our nav bar. Now we have the markup here. If we take a look, it's just a nav tag. We have a div. This is actually where we're going to put our container class. Then we have the branding, which is just basically a link, and then a UL, which is the menu items. Okay, so that's the core HTML markup of a nav bar, a simple nav bar. So what we're going to do here is just add our bootstrap classes. So for the nav tag, this is going to have a couple classes. We need a class actually called navbar, and then we also want to basically tell it where we want the responsiveness to kick in. So we do that with navbar-expand- and then a size. So if we do SM, then it's going to kick in when the screen is small. And right now we're not going to use a collapsible button. You've probably seen those before. This simple navbar, it's basically just going to make the menu items go vertical instead of horizontal. That's going to be the default behavior for this simple navbar. And we're going to do that when it's at a small size. The next class I'm going to do is navbar-light, meaning that the background color I want is going to be a light color, so it's going to make the text dark. Okay, it's not actually going to change the background color. For that, we're just going to add bg-light to make it a light gray navbar. All right, now this div here, I want to add a class of container because I want the actual bar to span all the way across. That's why the container isn't around the whole thing. If it was, then the background would end like right here, and I don't want that. I want it all the way across, but I want the links and the logo, the stuff in the nav bar, to be, you know, inside of a container. But you don't have to actually have this div here. If you want, you can have it span, but if you make the screen really, really big, the logo will be way over here, the links will be way over here, and I don't do that. I always put a container. For the branding, we're going to give this a class of navbar-brand. Okay, the UL is going to have a class of navbar-nav, so this is the actual navigation, and each list item needs a class of nav-item. So what I'll do is just copy this and go ahead and paste that on all of these opening LI tags, and then each link, each A tag is going to have nav-link. Okay, so I'll go ahead and copy that and put that on all the links, and then we should be all set. So we'll save, and there we go. There's our nav bar. So you can see it extends all the way to the edges, but the content this stuff is within a container. Okay, so even if we make this bigger, like real big, you'll see it stops at wherever the container for that screen size stops. If I were to remove this div completely and save, now you'll see it goes all the way to the end. Okay, and I don't like that look, so we're gonna save that. Whoops, there we go. All right, so that's a basic nav bar, and obviously you can change colors and stuff. We'll take a look at that, but now what I want to do is look at the responsiveness. So by default, if we hit a really small screen like that, you'll see that it actually changes to this format, which does work out. I mean, it even on really skinny screens on mobile phones, it's still going to be operational. But we can add a hamburger menu if we want, or a collapsible menu. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to copy everything we just did here, so just this whole nav bar, and go right here and paste it in. And then we just want to add a couple things here. So we want to go right under the branding and above the UL, and we actually want to put a button here. And this button is going to have a class of navbar-toggler, like that. All right, and then it's also going to have an attribute of data-toggle, and we're going to set data toggle to collapse. Okay, and then when it needs a target, so we want to say data-target, and we want to set the target here to anything. You could use anything. You want to use a hash or a number sign. Let's just say navbar nav, like that. So what we're gonna do is take this target and put this as an ID onto the navigation, onto the UL. So right here we'll say ID equals, and then whatever we put there, so navbar nav. That way it knows what menu to trigger. And then inside the button tag, we just want a navbar toggler icon. So what we can do is put a span here, and we can give it a class of navbar-toggler-icon, like that. And let's see, we also want to put oh, you know what, I did this wrong. The ID shouldn't be on the actual UL. It needs to be on a div around the UL. So we just want to wrap this around the UL, and we'll put this here. And then this div also needs a class of collapse as well as navbar-collapse, and that should do it. So let's save. You know what, I don't want these two like stuck together, so this first navbar we did, I'm just going to give a class of MB3 margin bottom and just push it down a little bit. All right, so now this second navbar that we just did should now have a collapsible button once we hit a small screen. So let's try that out. So we'll make this smaller. Once we get here, notice that all the links disappear, and now we have a button, and if we click it, it'll toggle the links here. Okay, so it's responsive. Now, if we wanted this to show up on a bigger screen, like let's say medium screens, like this here, we could change navbar expand small to navbar expand MD and save, and now it's in effect on medium screens. If we wanted it on large, we could do LG, save, there we go. So if we want extra large, we could do extra large, and then that's always going to be this is always going to show, but I usually just put this on small screens like that. Okay, so that is a responsive toggle navbar. So now let's take a look at putting a form inside a navbar. So if we wanted a form in here, like a search form or something like that. So I'm going to copy everything we just did in the responsive toggle one. So the whole nav tag and everything in it, and then we'll paste it here and save. Let's actually add an MB margin bottom class to the second one. So we can push it down. And then we're going to go under the UL. I'm actually going to make this full screen to make it easier for you guys to read. We're going to go under the UL, and let's put in a form with the class of form-inline. We don't need an action because it's not going to be an actual form we're going to submit. And inside here, let's put an input with the class of form-control. And we'll put a placeholder, and we'll just say search. Okay, and then we'll put a button. So let's say button, we'll give it a class of btn. Let's do also a class of btn dash outline dash success. And then in here, we'll just say search. So let's save that, and let's go back to this, and now you can see we have a form. Okay, so we have an input with a button. We probably want to put a little space in here, so what we could do is on the input, we could put a class of margin right 2, and if we do that, now you can see the button is pushed over a little bit. Now notice that when we create the simple navbar, the links they're aligned on this side. When we use the responsive toggle, they're on this side. We can control where we want to align things. So let's say we want this form to be aligned over here. We could just simply add the class to the form of ml-auto, so margin left auto. And if I save that and we take a look, you'll see that now the form is aligned over here. Now, if we wanted, for instance, these menu items to be aligned over here, we could go up to that menu, and for the UL, we could say ml-auto and save, and now they're aligned on this side. And you could also use mr-auto to align things to the left. So remember, margin right will align to the left, margin left auto will align to the right. All right, so let's look at drop down. So what I'll do is copy the first one we did, which is the simple navbar. Let's grab that and go down here and paste this in. So for drop downs, it's going to work similar to what we did with the drop down button, except we're going to put it on a list item. So let's go, let's see, we'll just go right. Actually, we'll just create a new list item. So here we'll say li. We're going to give this a class of nav item just like the rest, and we're also going to give it a class of drop down. And then inside here we want an a tag with the class of nav link just like the others, and then also drop down dash toggle. Okay, now the href, I'm just going to put a hash. And then we also want the data toggle attribute, just like we did with the buttons. So data toggle, and we want to set that to drop down. And then inside the a tag here will be basically the title of the menu. I'll just say drop down. And underneath the a tag, still within the li with the class of drop down, we're going to put the class of drop down dash menu like that, and put our links. Okay, so we'll say a, and then each one will have a class of drop down item, which we did with the button as well. So we'll say link 1, and then we'll just go ahead and copy this down, say link 2, link 3, and I think that should do it. So we'll save that and we'll take a look, and actually let's add the margin bottom 3 to the one above it so they're not stuck together. Oops. And now if we click this, we have our drop down. Okay, and you have to include the Bootstrap, JavaScript, jQuery, and all that stuff, those scripts at the bottom, in order for your drop down to work. So that's that. Next we'll look at some colors. So I'm going to paste in just the simple navbar again, and we'll just take a look at some different colors by just adding a couple classes. So I'm going to do the dark. So let's do BG dark. Now, if I keep it that way, I can actually make this smaller now. So if I keep it that way, notice that the text is still dark. That's because we still have the navbar light. Okay, we have BG dark, but we have the navbar light class. If we decide to use a dark color, then we need to change this to navbar dark as well. And then save, and now you can see that it's the lighter text. All right, let's do another color. Let's do primary. So I'll make sure we have our MB3. We do. All right, so we'll copy this, paste that in, and we'll do BG primary, and I want light text, so we'll keep the navbar dark, save, there we go. If we wanted a green navbar, we could simply do BG success and save, and there we go. So you could just do whatever colors you want as far as you know, the context colors. So now let's take a look at fixed navbars. Now instead of pasting in all the navbar with all the links, I'm just going to do a very simple one that just has the branding. So we'll just do like navbar. Let's do class navbar dark and BG dash dark. A is going to have navbar brand. And for this, let's just say navbar, oops. We'll say navbar fixed top. Okay, so you can do this. You can actually have a navbar without having any links if you want to do that, and we'll save. Now, to fix this to the top, all we have to do is add in one special class called fixed top. So right here, I'm going to say fixed dash top and save. And now notice that it's always going to be stuck to the top. All right, so next thing we'll look at is fixed bottom. So I'm going to copy this, paste that in, and as you probably guessed, we can just change this to fixed bottom. We'll change this as well and save, and now it's stuck to the bottom. Another thing we can do, this says fixed top, it shouldn't, it should say sticky or sticky top. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to copy the fixed top and then comment it out and then paste it in here, and instead of fixed top we're going to say sticky top and save. Okay, let's change this as well. And then what happens with the sticky is when we get to it, actually we can't get to it because we can't scroll down far enough. So what I'm going to do here is change this margin top to, let's say, 1500 to give us some more space. And now, well, that didn't work, did it? Yeah, it did. So see how it sticks to the top? Once we get down far enough where there's no more content, it doesn't, but notice right here it does stick to the top. Okay, but I'm going to put that back to 500. All right, so those are the fixed positionings for the navbar. Now let's take a look at just some of the regular navigation. So here we just have basically a UL. This stuff is all in a container because I wanted it in the middle. But we just have a UL and some LIs with some A tags. So what we'll do here is say class equals nav. And then we're going to say nav dash pills. So if we save that, it's going to put everything in line. And then here we can add nav item, just like with the navbar. And then just like with the navbar, we want the A tags to have a class of nav link. Okay, so I'm actually going to just copy this and go like that. And if I save that, we just basically have just a simple inline navigation. Now, if we want one of these to be active, we can add a class of active and save, and then it kind of gives it that background color with the padding. Okay. Now we can also align this horizontally or center it horizontally. So if we wanted it like in the middle, so I'll just copy this and paste that in. And then all we're going to do is add a class right here called justify dash content dash center and save, and now you can see it's in the middle. Okay, if we wanted to right align, what we'll do is paste this in and we'll add justify dash content dash end save, and that's going to align it to the end. Okay, if we want to do a vertical menu, let's see, we'll just paste this in again. And let's see, we want to just add the class of flex column. And we're going to get into flexbox in a little bit, but flex column means we want to align it vertically instead of horizontally. So if I save that, now we have a vertical menu. For fill and justify, we'll go ahead and paste this in, and we can just add a class of nav-fill and save, and it justifies it. It basically spans each link all the way across. All right. So that's going to be it, guys, for navigation and navs. I know this was kind of a long video, but there's a lot to cover. But that's the gist of it. Nav bars are obviously very important. So you know how to create responsive ones. You know how to align links and the branding and create forms and change colors and add fixed positioning. So in the next video, we're going to look at list groups and badges.